Listen up. If you're a player, coach, or parent trying to learn more about football, the quarterback position, navigate recruiting, or determine the landscape of both college and high school football, we got the podcast for you. But before we get going, quick shout out to our sponsors over at Lowney Sports. I've known Tim personally, and he's been a longtime supporter of both youth and high school athletes. He's also an attorney of over 25 years and both an NFL and NIL agent. Many think NIL is expensive, unnecessary, or that it only matters once you have an offer. But there's a lot more to know before the scholarships and deals start coming. To contact Tim for a free NIL consultation, call 617-733-8313 or visit lowneysports.com.
M2QB Academy is also a Wilson brand affiliate. When you're buying Wilson merchandise, go to the website, click checkout, and plug in our promo code M2QB-456 and save some money with your purchase.
All right, today on the podcast, we have former NFL quarterback and current Penn State quarterbacks coach Trace McSorley. Coach, how you doing?
What's up, guys? Appreciate y'all. Doing well. How y'all doing?
Good. Happy to have you on. I think it's going to be. I think it's going to be fun. I think it's going to be really good for the kids. We pumped Coach Lamb's tires last week. I'm going to start by pumping yours right now. Penn State record holder for wins, passing yards, touchdown passes, total offense, touchdowns responsible for, and the list goes on and on. Can you just talk to us kind of about your days playing there?
Yeah, I mean, it was obviously we had a great run. We had a great team. The bond we had, I think, made it to be why we were as good as we were. Obviously, we had a ton of great talent, right? The list goes on of the type of players we had, and guys that are still doing well: Saquon Barkley, Chris Godwin, Mike Gesicki. Defensive side, Marcus Allen, Grant Haley. Like, again, that list also goes on. But we had a great team, great chemistry, and we had coaches that kind of gave us the ability to take the team as our own, and really kind of take control of it. And that team kind of went as we went. So it kind of, showed me what can be. But I mean, it was a great time there. It was, some of the funnest years of my life just playing football. And honestly, a lot of times didn't even feel like, people talk about the type of pressure and how much you must have felt like, man, it was just fun being out there with those dudes. It was, the greatest 4 years that I had. And then, the bond that we created, we still stay in touch all the time. So some of those guys are still my best friends to this day. And that's kind of the beauty of going through something like that with all those guys is everyone kind of splits off, goes their own way, does their own great, amazing things. But the bond that we had still stuck. And I think that's a big factor just of what Penn State is in general. But, having lived it, done it, and seeing those guys, like it's something that I'm very proud of what we were able to get done.
Yeah, and you kind of touched on it, like not really feeling the outside noise just because of the type of bond that you guys had and the chemistry that you had. At some point, though, you guys are playing Ohio State or you're playing Michigan or you're in the Big Ten championship. There's got to be a lot of outside noise just in terms of what you're hearing or things coming in and out. Were you guys able to just block that out completely, or like how do you manage that as a quarterback, kind of spearheading that type of situation?
Yeah, I think, personally, like just how I try to go about it was, and this was something I learned from Christian Hackenberg when I first got there, was because I saw him come in, right? Like I got there, he was Big Ten Freshman of the Year, #1 overall recruit coming out, like the savior of Penn State. He had all the expectations. And then the next 2 years were a little rocky, a little choppy for him. He did well, but it wasn't what everyone on the outside kind of expected it to be for him. So I got to just sit back and kind of watch him handle all the praise that he was getting, and then when it wasn't going well, all the, crap that he got outside from everyone else. So how he went about his business, just from a preparation standpoint, always just being where his feet were, focusing on what he needed to do in that day, in that moment, not letting anything push him off of the track he was on and kind of just stay in his own lane. I saw a lot of that, and that's how I try to carry myself and, focus so much on my preparation and kind of give myself a lot to do there. Because if I always had a lot going on, whether it was school or, preparation, game planning, film study, practice, it forced me to not even have a chance to pay attention to all the other stuff that was kind of going on the outside. So I kind of just immersed myself in my weekly routine, my weekly prep, and then that allowed me to just be focused on there, be where my feet were, and then once the game came around, I was prepared, ready to go. I knew what to expect. I knew the game plan inside and out. I knew what we were going to get based on what formation we lined up in, what their options were, what pressures they like to run, what my answers were versus different things they may throw at me. So that just kind of allowed me to ignore all the other outside noise when it was, you're playing Ohio State and it's a whiteout and there's 110,000 people there, or you're on the road in the big house. What's it going to be like? It allowed me to just block all that out and focus on what I needed to.
Yeah, I mean, that's wild.
That is crazy.
The difference going from playing in high school, obviously you had a ton of success, but you get to Penn State and you're finally named the starter on your birthday, which is a pretty cool story.
Yeah. Well, when I woke up that morning, I didn't know, so I was still sweating bullets. It was about to be like a stressful birthday, and then it ended up being a good one.
Yeah,
it was
absolutely.
my 21st too, so it was overall good day.
What a present.
Yeah, that's awesome. So then, you get in your first game, and you're playing in front of so many more people than you're ever used to in high school. Was it easy to block that out? Was the environment to get used to playing in front of? Because I know a lot of our kids go from playing in front of 1,000 kids in high school, and then they go to that level, and it's like you said, 100,000 people in the stadium at Beaver Stadium. Is that an adjustment, or is it once you're in the game and you're worried about the pre-snap process and going through your routine? Is that easy to block out, or did that take a little bit of an adjustment?
It blocks itself out because, like you say, you kind of get into that pre-snap routine, and the players are coming in at 1,000,000 miles an hour and everything's going on, so you kind of don't have time to pay attention to the wow factor on the outside. One thing I did always like to do, and Coach Franklin he told us, it was something he talked to the team about doing, is when you run out on the field, take 15 seconds and admire the scene, admire where you're at, kind of take it all in. And I always like to do that because it kind of did allow me to appreciate where I was, and the moment, running out in the whiteout and see the fireworks, burn that image into your brain. Fun because now that I'm old and done playing, that's still sitting there and that's cool to look back on. But also it allowed me as a player to just appreciate where I was and kind of just take everything in. And once you did that, then it was easy to flip the switch back to, okay, now we got to go get ready for the game. Now, the game's about to start. We got to get back locked in. For me, that was an easy thing. Once I gave myself, you got 15, 30 seconds here. Enjoy it. I would kind of run out, look at the crowd, admire it, run out, do my end zone prayer and everything. And once that was done, bam, game time. Everything else is gone. So that just kind of allowed me to that. Now that when I did go out and play, you're not worried, that stuff's already, you've seen that, appreciate it, and now it's done. And now it's just football. And it's the same 53 1/3 that you've always played on, same 100 yards. So none of that really, the hashes changed a little bit, but who cares? It's line up the ball in a parking lot. Who gives a shit? We're playing football. Let's go.
Now, did you use it you were a fiery player, obviously, ran the ball, your play style, I know all the fans at Penn State loved you for that. And you played a huge role in bringing Penn State back. Did you ever use the crowd as fuel? Obviously playing at home stadium like that must have been cool for you.
Yeah, I was always a little bit probably on the crazy side. I use the away crowd as fuel, especially when we played on away games. Same deal. I'd run out and I would just hear the boos, and that would kind of just juice me up, fire me up.
Yeah.
But I would try to play into our home crowd a little bit. Obviously, it's the best home crowd. And I'm biased, but I think it's the best home crowd in the nation. So any chance you can, if you early on in the game, you make a big first down run, even if it's just get up, hit a little first down signal. I was never a celebration swaggy type guy, but if you can get the crowd into the game after a big play, that momentum is huge just for your team. So being able to understand how much of a factor our home crowd can be. From the quarterback position, if you ever did make a big play or you end up running out of bounds after a first down, the sidelines there, kind of give a little wave to the crowd, kind of get the people going. like it's only going to help the team in the long run, because now when the defense goes back out, crowd's into it, like they're fired up. So did try to play into it a little bit, but it wasn't ever like a part of who I tried to be. Like it was always more spur of the moment and stuff like that.
Yeah. Now, I know it's tough to pinpoint maybe one moment, but you started 3 years there, had a ton of success. Is there like one moment that really stands out to you as like your Penn State moment? Like the time when you think about your time at Penn State, like you think of that moment, or is it just, obviously there was a lot of them, but was there a favorite moment for you?
Yeah, it's hard to narrow down to a favorite because you kind of mentioned there were a handful of them. I kind of go through all the big moments, right? We beat Ohio State with the, blocked field goal. They got returned for a touchdown, and then the fans storming the field. Like, that's a surreal moment that I remember. We went on the road to Iowa, had to do a 2-minute drive, went all the way down on the road. And personally, I think Iowa was the hardest place I ever had to play on the road there. And, we scored with time running out to win the game. Like, that one sticks with me. But the one I always draw back on as my favorite was after the Big Ten championship. Having won that game, like that's the mark of every quarterback is judged by wins and championships. So for me, once that game ended, and being up on the podium, celebrating in the locker room with my teammates, like that moment was just like pure ecstasy, joy, excitement. Like that one sticks out as my favorite just because we felt like we were on top of the world at that point. And that's what it's all about. That's why you put in all the work in the offseason. That's why you do all the film study. That's why you scratch, claw, fight during the game, like just to win the game. And in a moment where it was for a championship, and we had to make a big comeback. We were down 28-7, like clawed all the way back, hit a big touchdown at the end to kind of take the lead, and then we were able to kind of keep the foot on the gas and keep going and win the game. Like that was, to me, kind of epitome and favorite moment for my time there. Is just, being on there and looking out. I was able to actually up on the stand, like, confetti falling and all that, like your picture perfect thing you always think about. And I looked out and I could see my parents in the stands and like they're fired up, they're hugging each other. Like that's just such a cool moment for me that always sticks out.
That's incredible. I was going to ask you about Coach Franklin. So I think that's super cool that like he wanted you guys to take that 15 to 20 seconds to just soak everything in. What was it like playing for him? And what, kind of helped him build that culture there? Like you said, such a tight-knit team. What was it that stuck out about Coach Franklin and how he kind of got his guys going?
Yeah, I think for him it was the preparation that was emphasized early on in the week. And he would always say, like, he was never a big pregame speech, rah-rah type guy. But through the entire week, he was meticulous in, what was demanded of us as players, what our preparation needed to be. And by doing all that, it just built confidence in the players one day at a time. So that you didn't need, him to come out there and give you a ton of confidence that was fake or needed to juice everybody up because you had built it up through the week. And that was something that I always I appreciated and took with me. And, that's something that I'll continue to take with me is just as I get into my coaching career is just the more confidence you can build in guys early on in the week. Now they're not going out thinking and playing tentative. They're going out there playing fast and, firing and being confident in their own decisions, especially at the quarterback position where, you need to be confident in the throw you're making. You need to be confident in what you're seeing. You need to be confident in your footwork, and everything ties together. And if you're not confident in one of those aspects, and there's a million other ones that play into just one play, you're not going to make the decision that you want to, or you're going to be a little off with your throw, or, there's so many things that can happen if those things aren't in line. So the more confidence you can build in a player early on in the week, I think it just allows them when the game comes, now you're just playing. And you're just playing the game and not thinking it out. And I think that just is such a big boost to a player that it's something that I learned from Coach Franklin that I'll always carry with me.
Trace, talking a little bit about preparation. You've obviously played in a ton of big games. Kind of walk me through what a week of prep looks like for you, or looked like for you, back when you were playing at Penn State?
So and this was kind of something that I tinkered with every year. Like, where can I get more comfortable in some preparation stuff, but kind of the same general timeline that I carried with me even once I got to the NFL was, so we played Saturday. Sundays would be like our come in, you review the game, and I would throw on 2 to 3 games of the next, like most recent relevant games of the next opponent. And that was really just, I got the cowboy in my hand, the clicker, I'm buzzing it. I would have a notepad out, but I wasn't like charting coverages or things like that. Like, all right, this is a cover 3 team. It's an over front. The common pressures or Sam from the field. They'll bring a corner fire, like whatever little things I could jot down. But really more just trying to get a feel for it. Like, what are they, a zone team? Are they a man team? Like, who are the dudes on the other side? Like, just kind of real base feel. And that was kind of like Sunday. And then Monday would be a little bit more like by formation of studying. Like, okay, this is how they line up to our 2x2 formations. It's 3x1, 1x3, kind of trying to get maybe a few more tells. And I had this is actually their breakdown of top coverages by formation, and pressures and fronts. So that was like my Monday. Tuesday was like our normal downs install practice day. So early on in the day, it's just learning the install and getting comfortable with it. Tuesday night, reviewing practice, and then jumping into like third downs. So breaking it down by down and distance, short, medium, long, different situations. Is there a tell? Like if we put the back out at 1, or if we line the tight end up in a certain number in a trips formation at 1, 2, or 3, like who covers them? Is that a man zone tell? What are their big third down pressures? Do they bring an exotic front? Like, what do I need to do? So those are the type of things I was going over like Tuesday night to get ready for like our big third down day on Wednesday. And then Wednesday night kind of became like after practice, review that. And then it was looking to some situations, but then, hey, is there something I wasn't super comfortable with in either the normal downs or third down game plan? Like through the 2 days of practice, was there a play or a coverage that I didn't quite see or didn't feel great against? Like, let me just go back and like throw on their tape and see if there's something I can't find to kind of see what either the coaches saw or why it didn't play out in practice how I anticipated it to based on my original film study. And then, so that was what I said, Wednesday night. And Thursday became like, again, a little more cleanup and more situational stuff. And then Fridays, again, I would just kind of go back and throw on a couple games and just kind of buzz through it. Maybe it was a game I hadn't seen yet from earlier in the year. Like maybe I'll pick up on something new. But Friday, I wanted to kind of make that be like my day of just feeling confident as hell going into Saturday night, into the Saturday game. So just kind of wanted to watch some things, like make sure I felt good about our game plan, felt good about what I was seeing. And then that would kind of be like once Friday night hit, if we had like a noon game, that would kind of be my end. I wouldn't like throw on anything else the next morning. If we had a night game, I might like around noon, like throw on a tape one of our coaches would make or something like that. Like again, just like a jaws, go back through it, jog my memory. Hey, one more coat of paint, as I like to always say, just go back over some things if I needed to. But Saturday, I like to kind of just leave to like clear my head and be ready to just go play ball.
Yeah, it's crazy. Everybody expects to see a high level of play on Saturday and Sunday, but they don't realize what goes into it during the week. And on top of doing all that, you're going to class, trying to maintain your grades, and doing all the other things that you got to be doing just to make sure you can get on the field on Saturday. So, it's crazy.
Yeah, there's all, and we're talking all this football stuff, and it sounds like a ton, but yeah, you still got probably 15 credits you're enrolled in the fall, 12 to 15, so you can be working towards your degree and ready and be able to eligible for postseason play and all that type of stuff. So there's a lot that's on these kids' plates, and we're fortunate at Penn State that when I was playing there, there were a ton of people that I were able to help in the academic side and the player development side that I leaned on. And I just tell that to all the guys here, like, man, don't be scared to go ask a question. Like a lot of it, you feel like, oh, you're the starting quarterback at a big time program, like you have all the answers. Dude, no. Like this is hard. There's a lot of stuff on your plate. If it's whether you come to a coach, you just need to like vent about something, or hey man, I got a test that's killing me. Like, do you need extra help academically with a tutor? Like, where can I help you? Because I know how much you have on your plate, having been there and lived it and felt what it's like and felt what it is to not want to ask for help. But like, there's so many people here to help you and bring you along on this journey and make it as successful as it can for you. Like, don't be afraid to ask questions. Like, there's no dumb question. Like, people don't know what's in your head until you bring it out. So, and you go through like, why is this, guy is a starter at a big time school not playing well against, what a lot of people would say maybe they should be rolling a team, especially early in the year. Like, that dude might have had 4 tests like during the week. And one was like a physics or something like that. That's hard as hell. Like, he's bogged down with a ton of stuff outside of any outside relationships with his family or whatever you might have. Like, there's a lot of stuff that goes into just being able to roll out and be confident on the field. Lean on all the resources you have. And if there isn't a resource, bring it to someone who you trust and they'll help you find one. And I think that's something that like I wish I did more as a player. So now, like, flip it around on the coaching side, I try to tell all these guys, like, dude, if you need to just lean on me, like, go for it and I'll help you out or whatever I can do, because I know how stressful it can be.
Circling back a little bit, man, you talked about kind of Coach Franklin and the rest of the staff letting the leadership come from the players and that being player driven. Where do you think, like, why do you think that's so significant, important at the quarterback position? And just describe to me a little bit what that looks like on a week to week basis, whether it's in practice or it's in the game, what your leadership style kind of looks like.
Yeah. So like, I think the reason why it's so important to me is like, at the end of the day, like, the 11 players on the field, like, you can call any play you want as a coach, but the players are the ones that need to go out, be confident, and execute it and make it work. Like, one of the coaches I had going through my time in the NFL was, he always said, like, hey, at the end of the day, it's players, not plays. Like, coaches are instrumental in like trying to set things up and game plan it out to be perfect, but you can game plan all day long. Like, you may get something you didn't expect to see during the week, or you may get a ton of rain the game day and you're going to have to kind of make some adjustments. But so with the leadership being player driven, then it always came down to, now there's ownership on the player side, to where they felt and we felt when I was playing that the end result was on us. It wasn't on the coaches. It wasn't on anyone else. Like, we played the game. We felt like, whether it was a great game plan or not, and usually like coaches do a good job, like, it's a good game plan going into it. But at the end of the day, like, we felt we could make any play work. Even if they called a play against a completely different look we had never seen before, on paper it shouldn't work. We as players and me as a quarterback felt I knew the answer to make this a successful play or the least negative it could be. And that was one of the things that I just kind of always leaned on as a player. And then, so from a leadership standpoint, a lot of it kind of, for me, how I went about it was I tried to build a relationship with each guy individually. Because then once I knew I had that relationship and there was that bond and trust and it went both ways, then I knew how I could bring a guy along, or if a guy was too high and I needed to pull him back. Like, I kind of knew the way to deal with it on a player-by-player basis. And then if it was a collective thing, then, hey, let's get everyone together, and if I got to rip some ass, I'll rip some ass and, like, get everyone going. But, a lot of it was very situational for, like, how I approached it. I wasn't a very loud, outgoing guy, but, like, if I needed to be in the moment, I could be. And I think part of the way I was able to gauge when that needed to happen was because I tried to build relationships with all my teammates and get to know each and every one of them. So, like, I could see, like, this guy's down today. Like, oh, he's down. Wait, everyone's down today? All right, like, we need to kind of get going. Or if it's just one guy, then we can kind of all rally around him and pull him up together. Like, that was kind of the leadership style, I guess, I try to emulate and go about as a player.
Yeah, in terms of what we preach and all these things that we talk about with the mental and the physical and emotional traits, like, the leadership is always at the forefront. And like you said, it's an individual basis and how kids deal with each other and how they respond to adversity. Was there a moment in your career at Penn State where you kind of felt like the chips were just against you and you had to kind of climb your way out? And if there was, how did you deal with that? How did you manage it?
Yeah, no, there were definitely times, early on my first year starting, we started out 2-2. We beat, I think it was Kent State, then lost a tight one on the road to Pitt. Came back home, beat Temple in kind of a ugly game, but we won. And then we went on the road to Michigan and got absolutely battered. They wiped the floor with us, embarrassed us. And that was one of the moments where, like, as a team, it felt like, damn, we don't belong with the type of competition we say we want to be beating. Like, it felt when we left that game, we were so far behind. And then for us as players, kind of what we did at that point was, and we kind of put it on us. Like, all right, for us, it was like, we need to step up our preparation. So, and it wasn't that we thought we weren't as talented as people. We were just, as a team, way farther behind than we should have been. And so we started doing like these player-led, like watching film together, being real honest with each other. So Mondays were our off days, so we'd come in, whether it was, hey, we're going to throw on a game for the next opponent, or we're going to rewatch our game together and just have real honest conversation with each other. Like, if we were watching the previous game, if someone messed up, it's, all right, hey, all right, this was wrong. Why were you seeing that? What was it? Like, for me as a quarterback with receivers, like, hey, this is how I saw this play playing out. You broke it this way. I expected you to do this. This is why I put it in this spot. Like, this is what I'm seeing. So, like, getting us on the same page. But then jumping ahead in some game plan stuff, like, all right, what are we going to see? Like, let's get ahead of it so now these things don't show up during the game. So just as a team, that's kind of how we approached it during that one. And then my last year, we hit like a 2 or 3 game losing skid. We were at one point like top 5 in the country, lost to Ohio State, came back, lost to Michigan State, and then we lost to Michigan at one point too. So we just like hit a bad skid, and it just felt like just emotionally like draining. And outside of anything else, like with the team, just personally for me, like I wanted to go out on top my senior year. I had dreams of whether it was winning the Big Ten championship, winning a national championship, that propelling me to hopefully being a top round pick. Like, and at that point, all that stuff had kind of fallen away, and that stuff was no longer realistic for us, just given where we were. And it felt like everything just slipped out, and that's where I had to lean on my family, my faith, my girlfriend, who's now my wife, like lean on the relationships that I had, and as well as the ones I had with my teammates, but some of the just more personal relationships, because I just felt like I needed those people in that moment. And that was another way that I always kind of dealt with. I kind of always kept like a real tight circle of family, close friends, that in a moment where, I felt like I just needed someone else outside of football to talk to and vent or just have conversations with, like get away from it, I would do that. And that always, again, it just kept me grounded, kept me focused on some more big picture stuff, that, hey, the world isn't ending. The sky is not falling tomorrow. You're going to wake up, sun's going to come up, and you're going to have a new day. And that's what I needed at times. And that's where having that tight circle outside of football that was just supporting me and I could lean on helped me just to continue along my path that I was on.
And then I think it's important for the kids to hear that type of stuff too, because it does go deep at times, especially at that level. But then you just touched on it briefly. 6th round pick, okay, to the Baltimore Ravens. The draft process for you, can you kind of walk us through that a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, the whole draft process in itself is like a whirlwind. You finish up your last game of college. Like for me, it was, what was it? We played like Citrus Bowl, I think it was. It was like January 1st or 2nd. Down in Orlando. Like next morning, I'm up. Me and my dad are driving down to the training facility that I'm going to be training at, and basically that starts immediately. Whether get your body right, but you're starting to train for combine, pro day. Do that for a couple weeks, then you're off to Senior Bowl. You do that stuff. There's a million things going on down there. You're meeting with teams till 11:30, 12 at night. you're doing all these aptitude tests and concussion tests and all this type of stuff that has nothing to do with actually playing the game, but is a factor in how these teams will view you come draft day. So it's just a whirlwind of all that, aside from being able to go out, learn an entire new playbook to be able to hopefully go out and execute and put your best foot forward on the field in that game. And then you kind of go through everything else. Combine's a whirlwind. Like, everything just felt like it was over the span of 2 months, but it goes by like that. It just happens so fast because there's so much going on. And then once that's done, you still got pro day and private visits, and then you're waiting for the draft. So it was a long road. And then you got to wait, once draft day starts, like, for me, like, all right, I knew I wasn't going day one, probably not going day two. Like, that little glimmer of hope in you is like, oh, maybe my phone will ring. Like, and then it's day three, you're sitting there, and, like, for me, that was the longest day of my life, where, like, it started at noon, but it just felt like that day from noon to whatever it was, 4 o'clock when I eventually got the call, took forever. And, I had to kind of go through the whole process of teams wanting me to, do DB drills at the combine. Like, I hadn't done a back pedal since I was in high school. So, like, I didn't want to go put something bad out there, and kind of got sprung on me in the last moment. So I didn't do that. And then the creeping in the back of your mind, so, well, do teams think, like, I don't want to play ball? I'm not willing to do whatever I can to make it work. So there's all that type of emotional and mental warfare that kind of happens as the player that I don't necessarily think teams are trying to do. Some of them are, but that's just kind of what happens in that moment. So it was a long road, but fortunately it worked out for me. I ended up in a great spot for where I was, and I had a great career in Baltimore while it lasted. But yeah, I just remember that day of the draft felt like 4 hours took 36 hours. Like, it was so long, just pacing around, like, not knowing when it was, and you see other guys going, and then you start thinking about will I not get picked? What's going to happen? Like, where does my life, my career, like, what happens next? But then it was a huge sigh of relief and a weight off my shoulders once that phone did ring, and just a ton of joy and excitement when it did happen.
So then you get to Baltimore, rookie minicamp, OTAs, things like that. What was the biggest adjustment to the NFL game for you, or, like, the biggest shock factor when you do get to that next level?
I think the one thing, like, obviously, like, the playbook is, much thicker. There's a lot more kind of put on the quarterback's plate. For me, and this kind of surprised, the biggest thing I remember, at least actually playing the games, was, like, every hit freaking hurts. Like, as opposed to college, like, you would take the big ones would hurt in college, but the little ones you really wouldn't feel. But in the moment, like, even taking a small shot, like, everything. I remember a couple of times, like, feeling like I barely got hit, and I get up like, damn, what the hell? I feel like I hit by a Mack truck. So that was one thing that, like, just like a weird thing I didn't expect. But the biggest thing that I think can kind of be a factor to whether someone makes it or not, and it's obviously not an end-all, be-all, but there's so much more actually free time that you do have as a player in the NFL, where you're not having to deal with classes and study hall and, organized, team activities and things like that. Like, you're a professional football player, and with the union, there's hours that you're allowed in the building, and there's hours that you have to kind of figure out outside of that what the rest of your day is going to look like. How do you take care of your body? How are you continuing to train and develop yourself as a player? And a lot of that kind of becomes on you as a professional. And that was probably the biggest adjustment that I needed to learn. It was a kind of ever adapting thing for me throughout my career, was always learning new things, trying different things in the off season, or trying different things on my off days in season to stay sharp and stay in shape, because I wasn't playing most of the time. I was kind of in that third string role a lot of the time. So where, hey, my off days needed to look different than the starter, because I needed to push myself physically a little bit more because I wasn't playing in games. And it was just something I had to learn how to do throughout my entire career.
how much did you lean on like other coaches or other quarterbacks in the room to come up with that, template for you on a week-to-week basis? Like, you played with Lamar Jackson. Like, did you take away anything from him or any of the coaches that you had that kind of really helped you in that process?
Yeah, there were definitely some guys that, through just conversations, whether it's with quarterbacks in the room or with other guys on the team, like, hey, how do you handle your in-season off day? Like, what's your training regimen look like? What's your recovery look like? What, film study? Hey, are you doing field work on your off days? Like, what does all that look like? And you kind of get to formulate it just by talking with guys in the locker room. And you can learn a lot from people of like other positions. Like, I learned a ton from other quarterbacks in the room. Like, I played with Lamar, Colt McCoy was a 13-year vet. Like, leaned a lot on him in my time in Arizona. Was around RG3 in Baltimore. Like, a lot of dudes that had a lot of years playing in the NFL that I was able to lean on. But some of the ones that kind of really more eye-opening to me was, guys that were on defense, guys that approached the game differently than I had always thought about it. And that's kind of where I leaned on a lot of those guys as well. Like, I got to see J.J. Watt and how he built his body. I mean, he'll be a first ballot Hall of Famer. Like, you're with guys like that in the building. Like, obviously, sit and have breakfast with those guys. Like, just get to know them and then pick their brain on one or two things. And then can you implement that into your own routine, into your own regimen? Like, where do you have space to pull something out, throw something in? So that was like one of the things that was a little bit more eye-opening to me. Like, Lamar was a fantastic dude, but the stuff he did on the field, I was never going to be able to do. So I couldn't really emulate that. I had to kind of lean on my own game. And he's one of the greatest guys I've ever been around, and he's obviously an all-time player as well. But it's being around guys like that, older veterans that had maybe been journeymen, that had to build their entire routine on their own and had done it before. Like, there's a ton of guys like that in the league that you can lean on that maybe aren't in your position, but are willing to pass the game forward and impart knowledge on younger guys. So that was something that I always appreciated at all the places I was at.
Talk to me a little bit as a dual threat quarterback, like, obviously huge household name, college football, go to the NFL, like, you're running the ball, you're taking hits. Obviously that's tough on the body. What's some of the stuff that you did in the offseason, during season to maintain that level of ready to go every weekend, and especially at the quarterback position, because you want to be strong, but you want to be pliable. You want to be heavy enough, but not too heavy where you can't move. What's some of the stuff that worked for you that you kind of pass on now as a coach to the quarterbacks that you work with?
Yeah, kind of the one thing that I always did a lot was like trying to be as strong as I could lower body wise, so that you were able to kind of build some size that way, but also be able to kind of be a little more bulletproof. You're going to end up building everything else there, but you threw like the staff there. But to your point, like, you didn't want to get like super tight up top. Like, I always, later on in my career, I got around a strength guy, Cesar Castillo, when I was with the Bears, and then he's actually with Washington now, but kind of approached quarterback training different than I had ever seen it. A lot, especially in the weight room, where it was a ton of anti-rotation stuff, single arm dumbbell, a ton of shoulder care, some things I had never been around before, a lot of single leg work. So like, you're always stabilizing your core the entire time. You're doing things that are different from other positions, but it allowed me to feel as strong as I possibly could be. So taking that, implementing it, but then off season, I did a good bit of like Pilates, yoga stuff to try to be super strong in the core, especially early on in the off season, where you just finished off the season. Like, I was never one to just like, all right, let's just go throw a ton of weight on a bar right after the season. Like, you need that time to kind of recover and get back. So that was I would do some calisthenic stuff. I like to switch up workouts every now and then, so it never got stale, especially during that time, like in the time that we'd be in right now, actually. So Pilates, yoga, focusing on core strength, stability, flexibility, a lot of joint mobility stuff, arm care, ankles, knees, hips, that type of stuff. And then just really kind of focusing on like recovery wise. Like I was a big sauna guy. Cold tubs were huge. Doing a lot of I did like dry needling stuff. Got introduced in that when I was in Arizona and like fell in love with it. So that was a big thing for me. Just some of the different modalities that they had to kind of aid in recovery and free up tension and soreness and tightness and injuries. Yeah, I mean, I just those are the main things I kind of stuck with. And then, like I said, in season was, a lot of just like conditioning stuff and like being with the strength staff and weight room, like being real strong in the lower body, but still being strong, but having free motion up top.
Super important, and especially with the way the position's evolving. Like, there's so much more expected of a quarterback now than there was back in the day. And, you being a dual threat, no one better to talk about it. But that's always something that I'm trying to, learn more about as a coach now and as a trainer. And something that we talk about all the time is how we can, develop the quarterback outside of just throwing the football and watching film. Being able to teach them how to take care of their body and stuff they can do in and out of season to make sure that they're always in tip-top shape, ready to go. And their body doesn't fail in mid-season when shit starts to get rough. So important stuff.
Yeah. You talked about Lamar, right? And I think that everyone's kind of curious. Like, we all see the God-given talent that Lamar has with his feet and his arm. What were some of the things that you saw him do off the field that were maybe like eye-opening to you? Like, this guy really knows ball, or he's doing this, and no one else is going to see that or give him credit for it. But what, aside from his physical tools, allowed him or continue to allow him to have so much success?
His one thing that he was really good was he saw space really, really well. And how he was able to manipulate that space with his eyes. Like, everything could be looking this way, but his eyes were jutting off the other way. And it wasn't like no look stuff, but how he was just able to manipulate defenders with his eyes or with a head tilt or, looking this way, but still having vision in a different area of the field. He was so good at just seeing space and feeling it. Where like throughout his drop back and things just happen like in slow motion. It looks like it when he's on the field. Everything's rolling in slow motion. So like that was one thing that I was always super impressed with. Like, he knew where everybody on the field was. He knew if the play's over on this side, he knew what the backside corner was doing. Because he's had such an innate ability to, his initial drop, see and feel the coverage and where it was all going and who was blitzing and where his hots were. He was so good at seeing and feeling all that stuff that he was never surprised by something on the field. But the other thing that I kind of always talk about was his ability to connect with teammates and make these long work days that were a grind and beating you down feel like you're at recess and playing with the boys and having fun. And, we'd be going through walkthroughs and, you would think he's just screwing around, tossing the ball, but the second, like, a play call came in, he's locked in, everyone else snaps to it, and you're executing the play call. And then that play ends and he kind of goes back into, not joking around and not, like, aloof, but making it fun. And guys in the locker room just responded to him and responded to that. He made the day feel like you were enjoying it, especially when it got to week 10, 11, 12, and your body's beat up and it's been a long season already. You still got 8 games or whatever it is. You're trying to make a playoff push to have an opportunity to just be in the playoffs. You still got a whole month and a half left of your season. And that was just something that I was always super impressed with, how he was able to relate to every guy on the team, whether it was the starting receiver, the left tackle, or a guy on the practice squad. It didn't matter who you were. He was able to relate to every single guy on the field, and that was just always so impressive to me.
I think we forget too much that it's a game at heart. And, right, we're all competitors and everything, but that gets lost in the mix a lot. I think, right, you reached the pinnacle of success, right? You got to the NFL, you were a high-level college player, right, Heisman ballot, won championships and everything. Talk to us a little bit about your decision to transition into coaching and what went into that and finish in the playing career.
Yeah, it was coaching was always something that I saw myself doing. I always wanted to do. Once I was done playing, admittedly, when I made the decision and the transition, the player in me wasn't ready to let it go. And that's even there's days now that like I feel like I could still get back out there and do it. But for me, it was one of those things that I had got my last stint with the Commanders 2 training camps ago. Played some preseason games, did some good things. Thought, hey, I might be able to get an opportunity to get a call here this season. Let me go, stay in shape. And Coach Franklin said, well, hey, if you're gonna still pursue this for the rest of the season, come to Penn State. You can train, you can do all that type of stuff. But if coaching is something you can see yourself maybe doing, why don't you kind of do a little bit of a shadow type deal? You can be around, be in our O staff meetings, and just be a fly on the wall. See what the day's like, get a feel for the job. And that was kind of really eye-opening to me in how much fun I kind of had in those settings and in that meeting room. And, I wasn't a coach on staff or anything like that, but I would still go out to all the practices and I'd stand out there in the back watching practice and I'd be there the whole time. And my wife would be pissed at me because she's at home like, why are you doing this when you don't need to? But I fell in love with it there. I've always been a kind of man of faith, and for whatever reason, like my career didn't play out how I thought it was going to. The opportunities I thought I was going to get, I had one start. I played decently in some preseason games, thought, hey, someone will call me, someone will pick me up. I have done enough good things to still be on a roster and kind of still be around this league and still competing. I know who I am as a player. I know what I can do. But those things just didn't happen. And it felt like for a time there's a reason behind it. And felt like it was one of those things that it kept not working out. Even though I would talk with people, talk with front offices, like, hey, what can I do better? What did you see? What did I need to fix? And it was kind of more, hey, the situation didn't work out here, but you did great. We appreciate it. It was all like, maybe it was just bullshit being spit back at me, and that's fine. That is what it is. But it just felt like I wasn't getting the answer that I was expecting to get. So to me, it kind of there's something I'm being greater than I'm being called towards. And when I did the kind of coaching shadow, it felt like that was where I needed to be and where I should be. So it was hard, and there's days where I'll wake up and still not be over my time as a player, and still have a bad taste in my mouth about how that ended. But I know I'm in the place that I'm supposed to be, and I know I'm in a place that is meant where I'm supposed to make an impact on the lives of other players and grow this next generation of quarterbacks and players forward, but also still be able to go out and get that competitive edge and kind of be able to go back. And if I couldn't do it as a player, now I get to go out and prove a lot of people wrong as a coach and show them what I can do there. And that's still, that competitive drive is still in me, and that's kind of how I've changed forward.
How many years have you been at Penn State now? Coach.
This will be my second year.
This is your second year?
Second year officially on staff.
Right.
So I had that 1 year that was kind of like shadowing around, but this will be the second year officially on staff.
Yeah, I think that a lot of people don't understand, like as players too. I'm certainly guilty of it, but like thinking that everything's kind of on us as players. But then when I transitioned similarly into coaching, you guys, coaches are there twice as long, right?
Yeah.
Thinking about it twice as much, doing twice as many things, especially now in terms of recruiting, right? So I want to hit on a little bit. How has it changed since you were getting recruited versus like how it is now?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely changed a lot. There's a ton more factors that do eventually play into it, like given the whole NIL and all that type of stuff. But I do think like the core of what it's about, especially at the quarterback position, like that stuff is still real. And it's almost even more real now, to where there are all these other factors where there's dollar amounts getting thrown at these guys, brand deals, there's the transfer portal, which is a whole other, sack of potatoes and whatever, all other shit. So the core of who you are as a person and as a player, especially in recruiting, I think that still stays the same. Like, that will never change as far as like what's going to make you successful at this position. It's arm talent and it's ability and it's athleticism, but it's what you have up here and what you have in here. Like, that's what's going to prove to make you successful at any level, and no matter how good you are physically. You know, when chips are stacked against you, how are you showing up at work? How are you treating people when you walk into a building? When you go into a high school now, like, does the janitor say the same thing about you or a guidance counselor say the same thing as about your head coach? Like, how, are you treating people the same way regardless of who they are? And like, at the end of the day, that's what's going to make successful people, and that's what's going to make you successful as a player. And it's easy to pick out who's talented and who's not, but it's hard to find the inner workings of a person, especially at a young age in high school, where for a lot of these top tier guys, it's going to start when they're 14 after their freshman year, and it's only going to get crazier from there. So I just think like the factors of who you're recruiting and what you need to be basing it around, even when I was still playing, like, yeah, there's a lot of different factors, but that's going to stay the same, because that's what's going to make you a successful quarterback and a successful player.
I think that's super good for kids to hear too, like, because it's daunting, right? And especially from the outside, like, I don't know enough about the transfer portal and recruiting and all these things, but to hear that it's kind of still the same, right? Just control the things that you can control and be a good person. Let the physical tools take over. But in terms of tools, and this is a Jimmy question that I'm going to steal, but if you could build a quarterback, say all else equal, right? So you show up, everybody says good things about, positive praise, right? Good kid, good leader, does everything right. What are some things that like you're looking for, or maybe some traits that you're looking for that you're like, man, I need to make sure that we have this in our guy?
Like physical traits, you're kind of saying outside of all the mental and emotional stuff?
Yeah, I was thinking more so in terms of like the emotional, like he's a good kid, he's a good leader, he'll do all those things. Mental or physical, right? In terms of football, what are you kind of looking for?
Yeah. I think one thing is the kid needs to be tough. It's hard to kind of really see true toughness, especially at a high school level. But once you get around the kid, you can kind of know, like, does this kid kind of shy away, or does he not bow up, or does he kind of like walk proudly? I think just one thing is the kid going to be tough, because he's going to get hit, and you want to know that the guy's going to be able to get back up, and he's going to kind of keep firing. He's going to throw a pick. Like, after he throws a pick, like, what's his next throw look like on tape? Is he going to double clutch it, or is he going to try to jam the next one in there? Like, and there's like, how does the kid respond to adversity? So is he tough? There is a factor of like, okay, what's his release look like? Is it big, long, drawn out? Is it taking time? Like, how quickly can he get the ball out from the time his back foot hits to the time that ball is out of his hand? Like, how long is that taking him? Is it long, drawn out? Is he a big stride guy? Is it, does he need to take a big old hitch into it just to drive it, throughout the field? And then, can he throw with touch and accuracy? There's so many kids out there, like, they can throw it 70 yards. Like, everyone's first play on a highlight tape is some sort of go or post. Like, you can almost book it every single time. And that ball is going to probably have traveled anywhere from 45 to 50-some yards, because they just want to show, hey, I can throw it really far. All right, cool. Everyone shows that they can do that. Most kids that are worth a damn can throw the ball 45 yards in high school. All right, but can the kid throw with anticipation and timing? And does he show an ability to layer it up and over a flat defender on a comeback, or up and down on the seam before the safety? Those are some of the things that's true ability to, like, passing ability. That's not just throwing the ball really hard and fast. And that everyone thinks like it's the hard throwers that are going to get all the offers. Like, no, like, that helps. But can this guy, is he a passer, or is he just a thrower? And I think the passers have the ability to layer a ball up and down over. They can throw guys open, throw guys into the next zone with timing and anticipation. And then, is the guy athletic? And not athletic in, is this guy running for 1,000 yards? is he able to move his feet quickly in the pocket, reset, and deliver? Can he get out of trouble? Does he keep his eyes downfield? Or is he hitting his third step, eyes are on the rush, and he's just trying to scramble and then, find the open guy at that point? If he can go 60 yards, hey, that's a plus. That's never going to be a bad thing. But what's going to make a guy successful is the other things. Is, can he get the ball out quickly? Is he tough? And then does he have the ability to layer throws up and down on seam balls, up and down on digs? Is he generally, you can kind of see, like, is this kid just jamming it in the windows? Does it look like he knows what's happening on the field? Like, is he attacking the right areas in cover 3, or is he just throwing it and, throwing it accurately and being successful that way? So those are like some of the little things that will kind of factor in as you're evaluating players.
Yeah, that's like you touched a lot about, right? Like these guys that look great throwing in t-shirts, right, and shorts, and just having these physical and emotional traits and things. Now, what's your philosophy, right? When you get a guy you really like, whether it's a high school recruit, and how does he develop year after year? What's your outline look like for him? And what's your thought process for a guy like that, just to maximize his potential as not only a quarterback, but a thrower and passer of the football?
Yeah. So like a lot of it, like when they step on campus, now a lot of it becomes like defensive study and defensive ID. A lot of these guys have seen defenses obviously before. They're generally familiar with what cover 3 is, what cover 4, whatever they've seen on Madden or NCAA or whatever they've kind of seen in high school. But I now dive into the ins and outs of overfront, underfront, odd fronts, jam, bear, different types of cover 3, different types of man, different types of cover 2, what their pre-snap process is when they get to the line of scrimmage. Like those are the types of things that as you're starting to build the foundation of the player, like I kind of look at the development as like building a house, right? You got to lay the foundation first. So if you lay the foundation through, what it takes, defensive ID, what it takes to be a quarterback, how you're going to watch film, how you're going to take notes. A lot of kids haven't done that. They've done note dictations on their iPad while they're in class, or they've never actually sat down and watched film with a notepad and kind of gone through a notepad and with film like that. So how are they going to take notes? How are they reviewing those notes? How are they, how are they planning out their week from a film study standpoint? So all those things kind of factor in the foundation. And then once you kind of get that set, then you can kind of dive into your offensive system with like how you're going to operate, formations, shifts, motions, cadence. A lot of kids like haven't ever gone through a full verbal cadence where you may need to do a dummy cadence and get a check, or you may need to have the ability and savviness of when you're flashing your hands up and how you're trying to get the defense to show a hand. Like those small things that come with the art of being a quarterback, that's kind of where, like, when we first dive into the position and the development of it, some of those type of things that a lot of these kids haven't been exposed to. And then obviously you kind of get into, once you get on the field, then it's, you see the kid throw and play, and now you can kind of, hey, do you need to kind of tweak one or two things here in like the mechanics world? But a lot of times, like, you don't want to mess too much with the kid at that level, because, yeah, you could change some things, but you got to be careful changing too much, because then you kind of mess up how they throw the ball, and now they're thinking it instead of throwing too much. Like, there's a fine line there. But that's kind of where I like to have, like, just a couple little, like, a few pointers for this guy. Like, hey, get your front foot down faster, or pivot harder on your back foot. Like, if you can think about one thing, almost like a golf swing, like, if you're thinking about how your hands are set up in golf, or, hey, what's my take back like? How am I starting my downswing? What am I doing with my head? What's my finish? That's way too much stuff to be thinking about. You're not going to hit a good shot. But if you can give yourself one or two cues, that's going to help you be way more successful. So that's kind of how, from like a mechanic standpoint, I'll try to approach is like, can I find one or two cues that can give this guy, the best ability to be cleaner in his delivery, but also still throwing it how he's always thrown his entire
I think that's like perfect. That's gold. We talk about it all the time, like paralysis by analysis sometimes. If you're trying to think about a million things at once, you're just going to be thinking way too much and it's going to go wrong. But if the conscious mind can only think about one thing at a time, so if you have one really good cue that's going to help the kid and not mess them up, I think that can still be so valuable even in season, right? Like when you're working indie or something early in the week, if you can find 1 to 2 cues that you can give to the kid, that's super valuable. So I love that. And then just a lot of the things that you said there about being a passer, not a thrower. And so many kids will reach out to us, Coach, how do I get my arm stronger? How do I throw the ball deeper? When in reality, it's the touch, it's the anticipation, it's being able to layer the football and be a true passer physically is going to benefit you. Last one for me, Coach. This has been unbelievable. Just talk about, obviously the hire with Matt Campbell. It's been a few months now. What's the experience been? What's the culture you guys are building at Penn State? Just kind of fill us in with where you guys are at now.
Yeah, Coach Campbell's been awesome. I've thoroughly enjoyed working with him and his staff since they've kind of came on board. And the one thing that's kind of struck me the most about them is how ground up their approaches has been with this team. It was a crazy end to last season for all these guys, whether they were on Penn State's roster last year, on Iowa State's roster, or someone else's roster in the country. It's been a whirlwind for all these kids. So a lot of it was just like, hey, we need to build the relationships up with these guys because either they don't know us or it's a change of scenery for them. Like we need to build that relationship with all these guys, build this team that way, build the habits of these guys. How are they approaching breakfast? How are they approaching the weight room? How are they approaching nutrition, athletic training? How are they approaching their recovery? Like focusing on the habits of all these guys. And it's been, for a lot of our guys, it's been helpful for them. But the natural bit is, hey, I want to dive into football. Like, what are the spring installs, man? Like, get them to me right now. And there's been a little bit of like, let's focus on what we need to in this moment. Like that stuff's gonna come, and when that comes, we're gonna hit the ground running, and we're gonna take care of all that. Like don't worry, boys. Like we're gonna dive hard in these spring installs. We're gonna be dialed in. We're gonna have great schemes. Like that's gonna come, but let's focus on the habits right now for all these guys, and then let's build the character of all these men, all these young kids that have all gone through a whirlwind over these last few months. Let's build that character and build it back up in all of them so that their habits, their character, the bond of this team, let's make sure that's rock solid so that when we do get the installs going and, inevitably something's going to be messed up, you're going to get into spring ball or fall camp and someone's going to step a wrong way or use a wrong technique, they still have those habits that they can always fall back on. And that will never fade. So, he's been very ground up with all that. And as a coach, I really appreciate that and being able to step back and watch that and how he's earned the trust of these guys, how he builds them all up, and while still maintaining this high standard and demand for, hey, you guys better be on top of all your shit, or there's real life consequences that happen. So often you get into this world where there's actions without consequence, and that's just not what the real world is. And for a lot of these guys, they're able to kind of get away with doing something that's a little off because they've been the best guy at their high school or at the previous school or wherever. They've kind of gotten that leeway. Well, we don't want to do a disservice to them because at some point they're not going to be a player. They're going to be a man and a father and a husband, and there needs to be accountability. So build up the man in the player, and then by doing that, the player will be on rock solid foundation and then be able to be the best player he could be as well. But I've thoroughly enjoyed working with Coach Campbell. He's been a great guy. The staff's awesome, super tight knit, kind of work their asses off. But again, it's fun being in the office all the time. These guys are great to be around, and I've really been impressed and enjoying these last few months with them.
That's awesome. And like you said before, you touched on like building the foundation. I think that's where it starts. It sounds like you guys are well on your way, so that's awesome. I'm excited. Big fan. Can't wait to watch you guys. So
Appreciate
it's great.
y'all.
Yeah, I mean, dude, that, like Mike said, that was gold. I think that so many of our guys are going to be able to get a lot from this. Stevie or Jimbo, you guys got any final thoughts or questions?
Oh, awesome,
If
man.
not-
I appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm good. Thank
Yeah,
you, Trace.
yeah.
That was great, man.
Yeah,
I mean,
no
hearing
doubt.
hearing from you and your experience is obviously surreal, right? And something that a lot of these kids aspire to be is a Power Four quarterback or a Division I, Division II college football quarterback, right? Anywhere in college football is tough to play. So, getting your expertise and just your wisdom and stories has been absolutely phenomenal. So we appreciate having you on.
No, yeah, appreciate you guys, and I was telling Alex this. Like, I think you guys all do great work with your guys. That I've been fortunate enough to have seen and watched and all that. Like, you guys got a great group of kids, and I think you guys very similar to how I was talking. Like, we have the same type of mentality. Like, build the foundation of these kids and make them ready for the long haul. And I want to commend you guys on what you've done because it's impressive. And doing something like this, like just getting things like this out for younger kids to see and starting it so early for them is great. So I just kind of want to give you guys that appreciation for what you guys are doing with these kids. It's impressive, and you're making an impact in a lot of their lives.
We appreciate you,
Thank
Coach.
you, man.
You're the
Thank
man.
you.
You're the man.